more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. We're definitely starting to see signs of spring here in Colorado, though we'll probably have to get through a couple more snowstorms before it really sticks. My name is Jennifer Skingileski, and I will be the worship leader for today's service. We welcome all at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. If you are a new visitor, please email our office manager, Amy Zen, to let us know how you found us. You will find her email in the Zoom chat. Our church website has a great deal of information about the church and our activities. That link will also appear in the Zoom chat. Now, please ensure your microphones remain muted and join us for worship.
Thank you, Jennifer. As we prepare our hearts and minds for worship, I invite you to hear these words of Brené Brown, who reminds us that, quote, "A deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick," unquote. Remember that for this time, you do belong, right here, right now, with these wonderful people who have once again joined together to share the truth that though our gathering may be a virtual one, we are connected. I'm glad you did go to church today. Welcome home.
Gather the spirit, harvest the poor. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of the
have a personal chalice or candle near your computer, please get ready to light it. We invite you to type into the chat box where your chalice is lit, the street or neighborhood, or what city if you're joining us from outside Boulder County. Now, I'd like to invite Whitney Wheelis to light this morning's chalice.
Good morning. As Jennifer said, my name is Whitney Wheelis. This year, Carol Teal and I are serving as co-chairs for the annual pledge drive. This is the time of year we make financial commitments to the church for the next fiscal year, which starts on July 1st. It is also the time of year that we reflect on what this church and our faith community mean to each and every one of us. 6 years ago, Jim and I jointly did a chalice lighting as part of the pledge drive that year. We took a good look at our financial commitment to the church. It started with us reviewing the UUA's Fair Share Contribution Guide. It's a tool to evaluate one's level of commitment and available resources to determine a giving level. You should have received the guide in a recent email, and you can find the link in the chat. Fair share is framed as a percentage of adjusted income to pledge and is presented by a range for each category. The categories are supporter, sustainer, visionary, and transformer. Back then, we were giving at a supporter level. What we realized upon reflection was that our commitment to this faith community was much more in the visionary level. We recognize the unique importance of this congregation and of our spiritual journeys. This exercise led us to double our pledge that year. Fast forward to today. No, we won't be doubling our pledge this year. We do have 2 kids to get through college, but what I can say is that we are still giving at the visionary level. This faith community is our bedrock. It is our support network. It provides for our spiritual and personal growth, and it's full of our friends. Living through this pandemic and the challenges we have faced, I realize even more how important this community has been. Even in the virtual format, we see each other and connect. We get to laugh, sing, and cry together in services. We are called to action and to reflect on who we are and the change that we want to see in the world. We see in others our allies in making the world a more equitable and just place for everyone. So today, we officially kick off our annual pledge drive. I urge you to search into your heart. Think about what this faith community provides to you and how it serves others. Then fill out your online pledge form for your commitment to next year's budget. The budget that will be presented to the congregation for approval is based on the committed income. That's our pledges and our rental fees. We balance the budget based only on committed income. So it's important that you pledge and communicate your intent. The good news is that many have already pledged. Thank you for that. And remember, you don't have to be a member to pledge, to make a financial pledge. And if you want to change your pledge, for example, to add some of your stimulus check that might be coming, just let us know. Our wonderful pledge stewards will be reaching out and following up with you in the next week. And please remember to get your pledge forms in by March 26th so we can wrap this up in March. So I light this chalice in honor of this community of people committed to transforming the world and for your commitment and generosity. Thank you.
We now invite all those gathered in your various locations to join together in fellowship and community as we say aloud our congregation's covenant. We gather
in fellowship
to speak
to
truth,
speak truth to each other,
reach out and touch one
to
another,
touch one another,
care with
Care
with
with each other,
and to
and
seek
to seek the truth divine.
So be it.
So be it.
Beautiful to hear all of your voices here together. Thank you for joining with us once again on this lovely weekend here in Boulder or wherever you are. I hope it's lovely. When we gather, one of the most important things we do is make some space to mark what's really going on in our lives. So let's just get quiet for a moment and let us tune in to our minds and our bodies and our souls to see what's floating around in there, tuning into our own joys and concerns. What is on your mind and in your heart? Lift up all that weighs on you. In this silence, let us hold this together. Let us also turn our minds and hearts to those we love. Your mind and your heart, hold them with love, acknowledging their painful challenges and sufferings. I now invite you to share whatever has floated up for you into the chat box so that we can all hold it with you, and I'll lift up some that are shared as well. Know that we're all holding and seeing what is shared here. Concerned for those up on College Hill last night without masks. May they find another way to move through this time. I know there's concern out there for all our frontline workers, all those putting themselves at risk to keep our supermarkets running and our kids educated, and all that's being done in our name. Yes, thinking back to Selma on this anniversary weekend, those who gave all so that we could do better. Concern for the persistence of delusion in our country. That's a poetic way to put it, Heidi. Yeah, so much family that we haven't seen for so long. I think I'm on month 14 since I've seen my parents or sister. And with all of you who feel so far and isolated from those we love, family, chosen, or otherwise. Hugs, remember those? We'll get back there. So there's just a little bit of what's going on with us, and I know there's so much more. People going through their own pains they're not quite ready to bring to us yet, and we love you and hold that with you too. Please keep posting. We'll keep reading. But we want to also offer our love, our witness to those who are experiencing joys and celebrations, like chocolate chip cookies made by 10-year-old grandkids in the kitchen. That does sound pretty joyful, Mary. The search committee, I want to make sure we don't lose sight of all the amazing work they are doing in our name. Exciting work too. Pre-candidates are being met with. How exciting. Some are seeing family, I'm sure in safe ways. A few names of beloveds of this community who are facing surgeries and time in the hospital. We send our love on wings to all of you. Let that joy fill your heart. Let us continue to be connected to all the beauty that is unfolding as well. Yes, I have heard a steady drumbeat of people getting vaccinated over the last few weeks, really picking up in the last week. So I am so joyful for those who have gotten shot 1 or shot 2. All of us who will follow you when we are able. More sunlight. Thank you, Alan. That is certainly a joy I share with you. Absolutely. You can keep those posts coming. We'll keep reading, I promise, but I'm going to bring this to an official close and say, for all these blessings and concerns, as well as those that remain silently on our hearts, not quite ready to be shared, we hold this compassionate space with love, and I thank you for all the ways you continue to bless each other. And in the spirit of this same energy, I invite you to gently close your eyes and join me in a time of prayer and meditation. Gently closing your eyes and bringing your attention and focus to your breath. Just letting your breath move at whatever pace it wants to, and just watching it as it moves in through your nostrils or over your lips, as it moves down your throat and fills your lungs, as your lungs expand and contract and send that air back up and out into the wide universe. Just being. And I invite you to let your mind drift to something that really brought you joy in this last week. A walk in the early spring woods with a friend, a delicious meal, a loved one getting vaccinated, the smell of the snow as it melts on the earth. Let that joy pulse from your heart center throughout your entire body. Just feeling the truth of that simple, beautiful moment. May we continue to feel this beauty and joy as we move through the week that lies ahead of us. Thank you so. I invite you to open your eyes and rejoin us here as we move into our reading. May it be so.
We all want to feel a sense of belonging. This isn't a character flaw. It's fundamental to the human experience. Our finest achievements are possible when people come together to work for a common cause. School spirit, the rightful pride we feel in our community, our heritage, our religion, and our families all come from the value we place on belonging to a group. From Rosalind Wiseman.
As always, our music is not suffering a bit in this pandemic times. Thank you, Deborah, for putting that together for the choir and everyone who participated. Well, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I'm pretty free to preach from all the gospels of the world. Those from our long ago ancestors, those historical traditions we know so well, and those that keep revealing themselves through the ages in poetry and song, in hard truth and uplifting words. And as it turns out, one of my favorite gospels to preach out of is the good book of NPR. So many of my sermons have been inspired from something I heard on NPR that I could probably claim my membership dues to National Public Radio as a business expense. Can I get a little love for NPR? I know I'm not the only you regular listener in this area. Today's message is a great example. A little while ago, I was listening to one of my favorite programs, Radiolab, and the theme of the show was why people do bad things. Topic most ministers find fascinating. And what really caught my attention was the piece they did about Yale professor Stanley Milgram's famous 1962 obedience study. Probably most of you are familiar, but I'll give you a quick refresher. In 1962, many Nazi war criminals were on trial in the International Court, and the defense being used by many of them was that they were just following orders and thus should not be held responsible for the criminal acts they committed. Professor Milgram wished to study this idea. He wondered how far people really would go when ordered, and so he devised an experiment that he believed would show just how far people would go when ordered to do something they knew was morally reprehensible. The experiment was set up in the Yale Elegant Interactions Laboratory, what a name, and appeared to be about how pain could be used to help people learn. 2 people were brought into the lab at a time, and one was assigned a teacher role and the other the role of a student. First, they went into one room where the student sat down in a chair and was strapped to a machine that connected to their arm. Both student and teacher were then told that the student would attempt to quickly memorize some nonsensical word pairs like blue and Paris, marker and donkey. The student was then left in that room and the teacher brought into another room. Here, the teacher was sat in front of an impressive looking switchboard listing ascending levels of electric shock that they could administer to the student in the other room every time they got a word pair wrong. Now, the teacher didn't know this, but they were the only person that was not in on what was really happening in the experiment. The student was not really strapped into a device that produced shock, and they were not really studying how pain affects learning, but rather how people respond to orders. The teacher was then instructed to administer higher and higher levels of electric shock as the fake student appeared to continue to get answers wrong. The teacher could hear the student scream in pain in the other room and beg to end the experiment. But despite what they heard, even when all indications were that the student was unconscious in the other room, if prodded by the very official-looking scientist in the room, 65% of the participants continued administering to the highest dose of electricity, which was labeled XXX warning / danger on the machine. Now, this experiment is regarded as one of the most famous social scientific experiments of the 20th century and has been taught in pretty much every psychology classroom since then, explaining why people will indeed do horrible things when ordered to. It is also, it turns out, as I learned on Radiolab, the exact opposite of what the study actually shows. It turns out the study I just talked about that is so well known is actually just the baseline study of Milgram's experiment. He actually repeated the experiment almost 40 more times, changing major variables in every instance, and never got anywhere close to the same result in any of his other trials. In fact, this baseline study, when 65% of the men in the teacher role administered the highest dose of electric shock, was the only one out of all 40 with an obedience rate anywhere close to that number. For example, if the shocker and shockee were in the same room, the rate drops to 40%. If the teacher must hold the student's hand down to administer the shock, it goes down to 30%. If the person prompting the shocker is not an official scientist looking person, it goes down to 20%. And if there are two prodders and they showed the slightest bit of disagreement between the two of them, compliance dropped to just 10%. But what drops it to 0% is the most interesting thing of all. The official scientist looking person in the room in every single experiment had 4 prompts that they were supposed to advance through when the teacher began showing any signs of reluctance to go on with the shocking. The first prompt was simply, "Please go on," which was highly effective in getting the shocker to continue. If they showed more reluctance, the second prompt was given, which was, "The experiment requires that you continue." Now remember, we've been told forever that this experiment shows how obedient humans are when ordered to do something. This second prompt is not quite an order, it's more a statement of fact. The experiment requires that you continue, not you are required to continue. And this second prompt was generally effective in getting people to continue. The third prompt they delivered at the next sign of reluctance was, "It is absolutely essential that you continue." Again, not quite in order, a very strongly worded statement of purported fact, but definitely not in order. Now, the final prompt, number 4, was finally in order. At this point, if the 3 other prompts had failed, the shocker was told, quote, "You have no other choice, teacher." I find that pretty creepy and pretty much in order. This is your only option. You must do this. You have no other choice. And guess what? 100% of people throughout all 40 variants of the study, when they reached prompt number 4, the only order they ever received said the same thing. Hell no. I absolutely do have a choice, and my choice is to be done. That's right. In Milgram's famous study that supposedly tells us that people will do horrible things when ordered to, 100% of people throughout the study refused the only true direct order they received. So if this study does not show that people slavishly obey orders, what does it tell us? And why did all those otherwise normal people in Germany commit those horrible acts? Well, a professor from Exeter University named Alex Haslam, who happens to be the person who uncovered the other 40 versions of Milgram's experiment and has been trying to set the record straight on what the study actually says, has found something pretty compelling in the surveys that all the participants to the original study filled out. All of these surveys still exist in the Milgram archive at Yale. And recently, when Professor Haslam read through them, he was shocked, pun intended, to find that almost everyone who had participated in the study in the shocker teacher role, upon discovering that they had been duped and put through this very emotionally traumatic experience, still said they were glad to participate in the study. And almost all for the same reason, because they believed they were contributing to the greater good. That they believed that their pain and sacrifice was adding up to something worthwhile for humanity. And this is what Professor Haslam says is the true legacy of Milgram's experiment. Not the latent potential of humans to do horrible things they know are wrong just because someone official looking has ordered them to do it, but rather that if humans are convinced that the thing they are doing is for the greater good, they will make a huge sacrifice to do it, to make it so. I find that to be a pretty uplifting truth, although there is an obvious dark side to this as well. Remember, the original context was trying to understand why ordinary people in Germany had committed such horrendous acts. And it looks like the reason is not obedience, but rather that many of them had been convinced that these horrible things were for the greater good. In this case, a highly warped and disgusting vision of the greater good. But if you look at the language used in Germany, that is exactly how everything was presented. Before some of the most horrifying massacres of the Reich, the rally cry was not "do as you're told," but rather "do this for the greater good of Germany." Make America great again, anyone? So what this says to me is not only that the ultimate motivator for people is contributing to the greater good, which is something I truly want to believe with all of my heart, but also something darker, something about how easy it is to pervert and misuse that incredible power. So what does this all have to do with us, you may be wondering? Well, as I was listening to this all play out on Radiolab, I couldn't help but think about the implications for the ministry of UU Boulder, where we talk about doing things for the greater good a whole lot. I strongly believe that my ministry and the values we support here are essential for the good of the world. And that does indeed motivate me. But how can we be sure that in this work we don't get off track and use that righteous feeling to do things that are not truly for the greater good? Which brings me, of course, to why you should stop going to church. What do I mean by that? Well, let me quote from my favorite church blog called Slow Church, where Christopher Smith wrote, quote, "When we talk of going to church, what we are typically doing is conflating church with a church service. There's nothing wrong with going to church services, but when we speak as if that is our sole or primary experience of church, we are greatly reducing our imaginations about what church is or could be. On the flip side, we load up the church service with massive expectations of what can or should be accomplished there in such a relatively small fraction of our weekly lives," unquote. This is certainly true for all the UU congregations I've been part of. Along with coffee, we worship the Sunday service. And though the Sunday service is a very important part of our community and certainly one I'm heavily invested in, it's far and away not the majority of what this community is about. Rather than being just about this 1 hour on Sunday, we're about providing opportunities in as many days of the week as we can for you to live your values. Because we strongly believe that is the best way to help people become the best people they can be. And that is exactly what this blog, Slow Church, is all about. Helping us make the connection that everything we do can be ministry if we stop thinking small about when we are doing church. So when I say that you should stop going to church, I'm really inviting you to take one more step into this community, helping shape it through your participation. Stop going to church and start being church. And that is, I believe, the key to making sure we are moving toward a greater good that is truly for the best and not one of those perverted and disturbing visions that convinces people to do horrible things. Because those perverted visions come when power is fully vested in a small group of people. When a community is truly owned by the collective and no one voice or faction can dominate, the needs of the whole naturally become the guiding principle instead of the needs of the few. This is exactly what we are striving to create here at UUCB. But it takes all of us together to make it happen, all of our voices and all of our bodies working together. The more we all embrace the idea that church is a verb and not a noun, that is the thing we do and not a place we go, the more we can accomplish for the greater good. And let's be honest, if this unique year has taught us nothing else, it certainly has shown us what matters when we literally can't go to church anymore. We've been forced to confront the truth that UUCB is not simply a Sunday service or a building or a minister. It's a vehicle for growth, for change, a living, breathing entity that at its best is made up of all of us. As we shared earlier, this month is our Canvas season, and we will be asking each of you to once again make an appropriate and responsible financial pledge to help continue the beautiful legacy of this community, to help us continue to work for our beautiful vision of the greater good. For some of us, this year has brought unforeseen financial hardships, and so those who can step up their pledge this year, I need to ask you to strongly consider doing that in a meaningful way. What we do here matters, and it's important that we do it together. May we continue to unfold this truth as a united community. Amen and Ashe.
This month, we share our offering plate with Intercambio, Uniting Communities. Intercambio is a nonprofit dedicated to teaching English and connecting people. They provide English language education, resources, and training that create meaningful connections, build cultural awareness, and inspire confidence. Group and one-on-one classes were at one time in person, but shifted to an online model last year. Let's watch this short video featuring some of their learners and educators.
About our weekends, and she's a good teacher. She's all the time smiling and she's happy.
It's also a container for many
I'm not sure if everyone is experiencing some video difficulties. So perhaps we'll figure out a better way to watch that video next week. I'll jump to the next item and say now you can make a donation now using the link posted in our chat, by sending a check to UUCB, or by scanning the QR code on the screen with your mobile phone. Please be as generous as you can. We will now receive the offering.
Looks like we're having a little tech moment here. I'm sure we'll get through it in a moment. Maybe the easiest thing to do would be to just move us to our closing song.
As soon as our AV support is back in the meeting, I bet we could.
Got it.
Here he is.
Take a moment to change your view to gallery and just take a look at some of these beautiful faces still gathered here with us while we get this figured out. All those beautiful smiles. Isn't technology beautiful? We get to see our smiles while we wait to get this figured out.
Yes.
Looks
So
like
Bob, if you're able, we're ready for the final, the closing hymn, closing song.
I need to be made co-host.
Oh, thank you.
I'd start singing it, but that wouldn't be better.
Would probably make Deborah cringe.
I can do it live if we need to.
Sounds nice.
I've got him. I've got him here.
Cool.
Oh,
I'm on standby. Here we go.
May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Sounds like we had some tech gremlins moving around our interwebs for the last 5 minutes or so. Sorry if some didn't get the audio on that beautiful hymn from Deborah. But let's extinguish our chalices and prepare our hearts and minds to return to the world as we hear these words of F. Scott Fitzgerald, who said, quote, "That is part of the beauty of all literature. You discover that your longings are universal longings, that you're not lonely and isolated from anyone. You belong," unquote. I believe this is also the truth at the heart of this community. Not only do you belong here, but we are not the same without you. May you know that truth tomorrow and forever. May it be so. Ashe.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way.
Thank you for joining us this morning. And now we invite you to stay with us in our Zoom rooms for a time of online fellowship and discussion. Barb and Fred are here to tell us how this is going to work and get us started.
Yeah,